Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. Live from the Den. Legacy Internet Radio. Thank y'all to everybody that stayed with us as we got through the show. Of course, we are talking about NWA, N Words with Attitudes, and their movie Straight Outta Compton. And we've had commentary from our brother Jay Grizzy, who is here with me in studio. We just talked to our sister Miss Tony, who we had a very good dialogue with her in reference to the movie. And of course, joining us here on the live line, it's been a good little while since we had this brother on the airways of Ain't No Half Steppin' with Marcus J. Joining us for the first time in a while, this is the host of N Live and Radio, which you can hear every single Tuesday night on Legacy Internet Radio at 7 p.m. Eastern. We call him Mr. LP. Mr. LP Steven Sykes is joining us on the show right now. What's going on, man?
What's up? How you doing today?
Doing fabulous, man. It's good to talk to you. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Just, came out the road, had a lot of fun up in New York, New Jersey, just doing whatever I can, resting up and ready to get business back going and things. Shout out to family and friends throughout the Northeast.
All right, well, I can dig it, man. I'm glad to have you back in the Richmond area safely and definitely ready to have a nice dialogue with you in reference to NWA and Straight Outta Compton. And obviously, you and I have had a lot of dialogue in the past about hip-hop and about reality rap or gangster rap or whatever it is you call it. And so we're going to have the dialogue about it. But before you do that, say what up to Grizz.
Who was? I'm sorry, say the last part of the question?
I said before we get into it, say what's up to Grizz.
What's up, Grizz? How you doing, bro? Long time no see, man.
Not much. Mr. Sykes, what's good with your player?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm trying to step up to your level, man. It's kind of hard. I didn't realize that, the weight of the crown, bro, but I'm trying my best.
You too kind, sir.
Nah, man, I can dig it. Ain't no half step on Marcus J. All right, listen, we've been talking tonight about NWA, of course, and the movie. And what I want to know from you, Mr. LP, is, first of all, have you seen the movie?
Yes, I did.
You saw the movie. All right. I'll get into your personal feelings about NWA and all of that kind of stuff here momentarily, because I have a pretty good idea how you feel about them based on some previous conversations. But solely on the purposes of it being a movie, what's your thoughts on the movie in itself?
I'm a little surprised some people and things of that. I actually was quite surprised. Obviously, I did not necessarily care for cursing and some of the other things, but actually, I felt it was I actually felt the emotion for the movie and the lot of effort that went into it. I was a little bit concerned with everybody. I wanted the people there, NWA there, to help with authenticity of the matter, but I was concerned that sometimes when you get so much into it that, too many hands in the pot, that might mess up the kitchen, being a movie. But I actually thought it was a very well written and very well autobiography of a movie about their lives and things of that nature. So it flowed a little well. I think maybe the editing, a couple little bit parts here and there maybe could have tightened up, but I'm not going to complain. It was for what it is and for what it meant to people. It was actually very well put together.
I could dig it. I'm surprised about that. As you said, that I probably would be, and so you were right. I am surprised to hear that from you. Now, let's get to the nitty-gritty and the meat of why I wanted to have you on the show. Tell me your thoughts about NWA as a group and how they play into history as you see it. NWA, Steven Sykes, what's your thoughts?
I want to preface this as saying that, with all movements, it starts from the young. It starts a lot from the young people and the energy and what's going on to the world. Not just with NWA, but you can even go back from Woodstock in the '70s, free love, civil rights, the war in the '20s, and prohibition, everything. But with the movie here, and for NWA solely, I feel that I can understand, because I feel like we need to do more than marching. I do believe that, but we have such a prestigious effort in terms of their anger and energy, and I get that you're angry, and for a lot of different things you have a right to be angry, but it's one thing to be angry and then half the rest of the album is be this, hold that, what have you. I feel that there's a better way of putting it out there, and when you're doing that, you're leaving a legacy, and that's something that, do you really want to grow up leaving a For example, I use Ice Cube as an example. Obviously he's not the same person that he was before 20 years ago. But at the same time, you know, you're doing family films, you're trying to raise a family and all these different things. And is that the type of image of, like, how to handle a problem? And I feel that it's casting a different aspersion towards how we overall handle a problem. It brought light to a situation that happened a lot, and it's hope from their standpoint. But I feel in a lot of those situations, there's a lot of different ways to handle it. I hearken to what our forefathers have set up for us, and how, you know, the groundwork was put there. And it's not always about marching. It's about education. It's about a whole bunch of different things. And if you go, for me, going through that Straight Outta Compton song and everything else that goes along with it, yes, you spoke a lot about the police and how the harassment and things of that nature. I get that. But that's not the whole basis of it. To me, that's sort of like the doorway to the rest of everything else, but you kind of hide behind the fact that, oh, I'm just talking about my neighborhood and things in your life. And I get that, but there's always a better way of expressing yourself. And now you see people, not just from them, but from a lot of the different people from that movement of any part of the country. I don't want to just say L.A. area, but just any part of the country, you have a bad image of what gangster rap is, and I just don't think that it served a great purpose for our movement. I feel like overall it set us back. I feel that if everything, there's some positives that you get it out there, but there's always a better way of doing it.
I will say, Stephen, that we got to put it a little bit of context here. This was, Marcus said earlier, 28 years ago was when NWA broke out into the mainstream or into the music business. 28 years ago, I was 17. And at 17, if I was 17 coming up in L.A. and didn't have that many opportunities, not to excuse what you're saying, I understand what you're saying, but if I'm seeing the police brutality and I'm growing up in a poor neighborhood and all these excuses, I can see how I could, at 17, come out with something like NWA. You know, now, of course, you fast forward 28 years later, Dr. Dre owns part of iPhone company. What is it?
Beats
and
Apple.
And Apple.
Whatever.
Cube is a mega producer. I don't know what Dre and Yella are doing, but I'm sure they're successful. You know, so I think, you know, we should put it in perspective. They were kids growing up in South Central L.A. that was rapping about the situation they were in. I would not expect a 17-year-old, and this, I don't know if this is a fair or unfair statement, to be as conscious about his situation in that time in the late 80s, early 90s, crack L.A.
Well, I give you a point of that, yes, a 17-year-old, but then that's when you have other adults where certain things should not get that allowed. Like, for example, when people were beer barreling or people were running around with stock and free love and sex everywhere and things of that nature, and they're 16 through 25, sure, we may not expect them at that young person, but they would eventually people put your hands on you and say, look, this is not how it would go. I feel that when it comes to our kids, it's like, okay, let them do what they want, and then now this happens. I do believe that you should allow people to express yourself, but I think that we the adults at that time, have failed in terms of showing that there's a better way and let it get out of hand, because now people will use that as an excuse to say, well, they made it, so why can't I? But that's not how you want to do it. For me, I can't speak for everybody, but I know for me and a few others, that's just an exception to the rule. You're not going to always sit there and like, okay, yes, you're talking about the music though, the situations that's happened to them. But the next song is about, you know, I'm digging out a girl in the bedroom. Hey, I'm doing this, that, and the other. I'm not saying that don't happen, but it's just how they go about it. It's not about, hey, the police is blaming me and assuming all cops are, black people are bad, and they constantly monitor our neighborhood when the white people steal and do the same thing, if not more. I get that, but that's not all their songs. That's where I feel like Marvin Gaye, what's going on, something that's just more multi-generational, multi-ethnic, multi-racial, and just do more different things that we could reach out to our people. And it's just more that they could have done.
Well, I want to kind of put something out and kind of present this to you, Stephen, because when Grizzy tried to make the point, I don't think you got the point that he was trying to make. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but these are 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids when they first started. I think 1986. So Ice Cube and Ren were 17. Easy and Dre are a few years older than them. So they would have been between 17 and 24 is the age group that we're dealing with. And we're dealing with some kids whose experience has been negativity with the police. We're dealing with some kids who may not have had the best relationships with women in their lives. I'm not justifying the misogynistic lyrics. I'm just setting the climate for what they were. Would you prefer someone to tell stories about some euphoric stuff that they know nothing about, or would you prefer them to tell the stories about things that they have firsthand knowledge about, which was their dealings with the police? The misogynistic stuff, I'm not going to defend that. It is what it is. I talked to Tony about that earlier tonight. It is what it is with regards to that. But the more gritty stuff, the more, anger of the police, that kind of stuff, where many of us have dealt with a negative, experience with dealing with police directly. I know I have, and I suspect Grizzy has, and I also know that you have because you've told me stories. Don't you understand where they were coming from, at least as young men in the late 80s when they were making these songs?
Yeah, I can understand, yes, but I just feel, but I took my actions, and I'm not expecting and saying everybody to take my way. There may be a better way over mine, but I took my actions to letter writing. I took my actions to the news. I took my actions and focusing on my education to do better, to get out and then do better so I could help the others do better in the neighborhood. If you choose to stay, cool, let's improve the neighborhood or get you out. I just don't, I understand the rage and everything else, but then it's the same thing. I would say the same thing as those who were violently doing things in various protests throughout colleges back in the day, the same thing of any generation of different time periods. It's just that I just personally can't condone. I understand you the part of the misogynistic aspects, but I just can't condone the violence and the language and how you go about it. I want you to tell your stories, but it's just how you tell your stories. For all intents and purposes, other than maybe I did not have the guns in my hands or stuff like that, but I can relate to some of the things that they've gone through, very much so. But I just don't think that it's fair. And then when you get out there, when you put it in the music in such a way to glamorize it, okay, there's a difference between telling it and glamorizing it. They a lot glamorized it. And then
I want to make a buck too. I need to make some money
too.
And then
people think it's okay.
Well, let me ask you this, Stephen, because during the climate of the late '80s, when NWA was dropping hits like "Straight Outta Compton," "After Police," and songs like that, two of the most famous people in America were Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone, who made movies glorifying violence against people as well, shooting them up and going to other countries and blowing up stuff and doing the same thing right here in this country. What's the difference between the movies, the movie version, the gangster movies, today's movie about Whitey Bulger, who was a real person, or Scarface that's been glorified as a great, great movie, or The Godfather that won Oscars? What's the difference between those movies versus hip hop? Why aren't Italian Americans stigmatized, completely as if all of them are gangsters, like many of us in our community are assumed to be gangstas, so to speak?
I understand what you're saying. I've made comments about that. I've said I don't care for the fact that every other Asian actor is they're either gangster or some Yakuza clan or they're into drugs. I've said this many times. I'm the one that a kid, when Rambo came out, I got laughed at because I wrote about how, instead of, Rambo this, that, and other, call to the aspect of mental health and how many, and I know it's crazy as a kid doing this, but to some, but I was a kid talking about mental health of our war heroes coming home and were not very well welcomed. I've talked about how Arnold Schwarzenegger in some of the movies over there, every other time you see an Asian woman, they're used as bed maids for military men. You know, there's all those things I wrote about that and everything else. And granted, I love my action movies just as much as everybody else, but I do recognize the importance of the images and things of that nature. I even say right now that one of the funniest shows out there is Big Bang Theory, but then at the same time, I even posted an article today about the aspect of stereotypical of Asian and Middle Asian men and how, you know, what's the word, emasculated as they are on TV.
But nobody in TV would make $1 if they wasn't using stereotypes. That's what attracts us to the tube. I mean, as a wrestling fan, I like to see a certain type of wrestling. So if they don't put that wrestler that I like on the TV, I'm not watching.
Well, see, the thing is, I understand what you're saying, Greasy, because you mentioned this before, and I agree with you on that top, that there's a certain aspect that attracts you, but it also, to me, can you show a bit of diversity into it? Like, if I would not have a problem on certain images and things of that nature, if you have that out there, but if there were more movies of other stuff and more actors out there, on YouTube for movies showing us in different character light, when it's always that image, or when you're always seeking that image, then that's what's pushed up there. And I can't just blame them. I blame all parties involved. Movies push up the positive versus the negative out there, and that's the aspect of it. Like when the kids out there singing "F the police" or this, that, and the other, are they really caring about maybe today, but overall, those who are singing and dancing it, are they really caring about what happened in there, or they just like saying the customers and the beat and the music? And I reckon to say a lot of kids don't even understand, except for even with this movie. They may not understand. They sitting there dancing and partying and everything else. Same thing with Public Enemy. I love Public Enemy, and I understand where their movement is. But everybody thinks of them as a militant people that's angry and just ready to fight, and that's not their message.
I could dig where you're coming from. Well, maybe we should put a Reading Rainbow trailer in front of Straight Outta Compton, so that way it'd be fair and balanced, quote unquote.
Well, I just want more shows. Like they canceled the Sanchez lady for her show that she had on TV, which was the first Mexican American led show. You know, they got rid of George Lopez. They have a new show, Off the Boat. I wish they changed the title, but you know, they got all these different things. They had a show about. They took off last year about us American workers going overseas and showing how you mean
the call center, the Asian call center worker? It's true.
Hey Stephen, let me get a comment in here. Our brother Mr. Sincere is listening to us right now. Mr. Sincere, your boy, he said that he says that you're a hater. He's asking what world you live in. And you know, that's pretty much his position. So to that, you say what?
Yeah, I'm right here. I'm right next to him now. We were listening to the songs early today, riding down the car, and my futile attempts of rapping with the song, trying to change the lyrics. It didn't work. It didn't come out very well. But, you know, I understand where he's coming from, trust me, and things of that nature. We joke about it all the time. And, you know, I just feel that there's just a different way of going about it. I just want us to show different things. I would not like it on TV, but as long as we had more in quality, like if every other show is us bang, 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 and then versus us showing, okay, some of us are educated, some are doctors. One of my biggest complaints on TV is every other show has the one black guy or the one black woman, and as soon as they put another black character on TV, they have to make sure those two people get together just to show something and things. But there's always one of us, and then the one black guy on TV on the hospital shows out there in Washington act like a dang fool, and then now we don't have hardly anybody black or in general and consistently on there.
Well,
we always have
here's my question with you.
Investigation shows.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Stephen.
In this world, that's all I'm asking.
Okay, I got you, Stephen. But you make that point, and it's hard to take that point serious when you look up and you see shows like Blackish, which, you know, we all have issues with the name of the show, but at the end of the day, it's a great show, and it depicts a very positive family, you know, and it's not the only. But hold on. Hold on.
Okay,
Okay, hold on. I'm not finished. Hold on.
Oh, excuse me.
You know, when you have a show like that, you know, you can't say that there are not any good shows. Now, I agree with you that a lot of the investigative shows, they depict us in a negative light, and a lot of that has to do with the, you know, the natural inclination to paint many in the black community with a negatively broad brush, you know, which is why you look up and you see, you know, security set up for the Straight Outta Compton movie when you didn't have it for Trainwreck, which is where somebody actually got shot up. And why they got shot up is because it was random. And I don't know how you plan for random. And so I want to kind of steer the conversation to that and get what your opinion is with regards to that when you see the news of all of these people going to the theaters and having to walk out to a huge police presence. Do you feel that that's justified? Do you think it's a good idea to have police presence at these movies, or was it an overreaction by the theaters and the studio?
I'll say 50-50. I really feel part of it is an overreaction, but also at the same time, when it comes to major black movies or that has that type of theme, in a lot of movie theaters, there were violence. If you go to, not even in just these type of movies, unfortunately, many people avoid new movie theaters that have a lot of, that's in a major black neighborhood because of what happens in terms of either the lack of care to the movie theater, how it react, and everything else in between. I just recently came up in North, and one of the worst experiences I ever had at a movie theater was at Magic Johnson movie theater in Harlem, and things of that nature. And some of the other ones where I'd rather go to 42nd or some of the other ones just because of, you know, I wanted to give it to that movie theater, but just the bad experience of how we treat things. Where people, yes, have gotten in fights. I remember seeing people get in fights in Love Jones. I remember seeing people get in fights in other things. Maybe not to the masses. Even when we had the Notorious movie, what happened? They didn't have security up in every, and there were at least 45 reports. I remember specifically because I was monitoring that. There were 45 reports in the initial weekend, and there were probably more that I missed that came out of fighting in the movie theaters. So you have to look at what was based out of. Now, I would have hoped, to be honest, we would never get the opportunity, and I'm hoping for the next movie that there would not be any police presence, and we get the opportunity that we can show them to a movie like this and not have any type of violence, such as if we did a movie for Public Enemy or anything similar. Now we can maybe show that we can come to a movie with some certain amount of violence and not have this type of issue. I do believe now we do need more metal detectors in all movie theaters because of the simple fact that stuff is getting random, and for some reason, old white men like coming to a movie theater shooting people. I don't get that.
Well, see, that's the whole point that I'm making, Stephen. The fact that we can send extra security to a movie that's marketed towards black people and not bat an eye and say it's 50-50 and suggest that it's okay. But I don't think that they're going to be sending any security to the new Whitey Bulger movie that comes out later on this year starring
I'm going to see that, though.
I mean, I've been fascinated by Whitey Bulger for about as long as I've been fascinated by NWA. And I'll probably go to the movies to see that as well.
What was that
But
movie?
I don't think that I'm going to walk out of it to see a bunch of police officers.
Oh, no.
You know, you think the people in Boston is going to be up there wilding out like the people in Compton?
You're right. You make a very good
allegedly
point.
were not wilding out? I mean, come on.
But then that comes to the aspect of challenge our people to make sure that's where I say at all times.
But
should start a- we should start a
I don't think
We have to
the answer is to
come out
challenge.
twice as better than before,
I don't think
so
that
we could show.
I don't think the answer is to challenge our people, because we went to the movies this week
And
supported a movie, made it the highest grossing R-rated movie in the history of August with no issues, and many of us knew that there wouldn't be any issues. You know, and I said this before, I'm going to say it again, I am absolutely thoroughly insulted by the police presence at this movie or any movie when it's an individual singular movie. That insults me. Absolutely insults me. Now, if you're going to have security at the movie theater for every movie, then that's different. Like Tony said to me when I talked to her earlier in the show, she talked about how when she went to the theater, how they talked about how they wanted to check her bags. They want to check her bags. at one theater, but not at another. It's the new process to check the bags.
Did she say what theater she went to? Probably.
I'm not gonna call them out. I know where she went, but you know,
I know of several. I got no problem. Powhatan checks your bags randomly. I can tell you a whole bunch of them. AMC and Woodbridge, they check your bags randomly. After, you know, I can say on several movie theaters they check. I got no problem calling them out. Shame to tell the truth, shame the devil. But the issue is that yes, I can see where it's insulted, but I can understand look at what we have a frame of where there's a movie, and I can honestly say, to be honest with you, I don't really feel that the movie was totally marketed to us, because the last I checked, there were a ton of. We went out there in droves to see this movie and supported it. I get that, but there was a lot of white people there watching it too, because they were just as much fascinated as much as we were, and I think that's just because that you have a lot of young white and other cultures that grew up with that music as well and singing it, and now we're in our 30s and 40s. If that movie came out in 1988 for something like that, or even the mid-90s, I don't think we would have had that. We would have had the same numbers in terms of the money, but I just don't think we would have had the same amount of the diversity in the movie people in there. But yeah, and I've seen people checking their bags too. So I saw across the board. I just don't feel that we did not have a good basis of framework. When we said Rosewood, there was fights. I mean, you know, every single time, and I can understand Rosewood, to me, was the one movie I can honestly say that angered me a little bit more than most others. And I feel that, you know, we have to show it. We need an opportunity, and this was one of them. Unfortunately, we weren't given that opportunity, but we need an opportunity of a major movie that's
Steven, you still there?
Yes, sir. Did you hear me? I'm sorry.
I lost you for a second. Go ahead.
Okay, no, I'm sorry. I said that we just need a good opportunity, and unfortunately we were not afforded it this time. But we need a major opportunity where we have a R-rated movie, and that we don't have show that we can come out in droves and show that we did not have to fight and argue and things of that nature. You know, I've seen people coming out arguing. You know, I was upset that I give you a perfect example, Avatar. I saw at the movie theater I went, and I saw about maybe 6 other reports that they were fighting about Avatar, but that did not get blown up as bad as a movie that features a bunch of black people, which is the silliest thing in the world. I just feel that we, all people, we just need to know that we need to come to the movie theater, get whatever you want for it, your own opinion, and take it away from with you. Coming in there to fight, regardless of who you are, what color you are, whatever, is not just because all it's going to do is hurt everybody, not just the black people, but just everybody. That's why I'm using Richmond, for example. You know, it took a long time to get that movie theater downtown because the people in the East End and Mechanicsville could not get to anything else. We don't have anything over there. And so now this is the closest. So it's just as important to come out at all times that we could show that we could be mature about ourselves. And then now, eventually, the tide would turn.
Wow. Well, I mean, you make some valid points, Stephen. I don't always agree with them, but you know,
Reading Rainbow.
You know, you make some.
I'm gonna play that theme song for tomorrow's show. Thank you, bro. I'm gonna do that for you.
We can dig it. Ain't no half step on Marcus J. Mr. LP, tell us who you are, where we can find you, brother.
I'm the one and only Mr. LP, Stephen Sykes, host of Live and Radio and Amplified Gospel. Live and Radio Tuesdays from 7 to 9, Amplified Gospel from 6 a.m. Sunday to 6 a.m. Monday. Both shows were nominated NAACP for shows of the year, and I want to thank everybody for all of that. And we talk about all things of the global community, health, wellness, life, sex trafficking, education, financial wellness, everything underneath the sun, and we're out there to help us as a global community. And I want to take the opportunity to please come out. Thank Mr. Marcus J. and everybody else that's come out to the show. Grizzy, come on out tomorrow if you're free. Silk is going to come join us again. Mr. Sincere said he is going to show up. So he's coming through, and I want everybody to come on out because we got a special show coming up tomorrow. Tomorrow, also throughout the day, we're going to play some information and documentaries on Native American history, Chinese history, some other things, some Aztecs and Peruvian history. Yeah, everybody knows we know I love culture and telling the truth of not black people all across the world, not just black people, but all cultures. And the more we can help educate, the better. I truly believe education conquers all. I thank y'all so very much.
No problem. Mr. LP Steven Sykes, got love for you, brother, man.
Peace,
thank
peace.
you for joining us tonight. You have a good night, brother.
All right. Grizzly, you coming tomorrow?
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be checking out the show.
Oh, come on, man. Come on in the studio, man. Come on.
You know,
Don't do that to me.
if I come through, I might set it off, man.
You can't, you can't put the man on the spot on the air when you haven't talked to him, man. What's wrong with you? You know
that's
better
the right
than
way
that.
to do
it.
That's only because he would do it to me, and I wouldn't expect any less from him.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do. I'll never be checking you out, though.
You might be doing that.
I appreciate it, bro.
Ain't no how step with Marcus J. All right, Steven. We'll talk to you soon, brother.
All right, peace.
Ain't no how step with Marcus J. Live from the Den. Legacy Internet Radio. Apparently, Mr. LP and Mr. Jay Grizzy and yours truly have a difference of opinion, but that's what we do here. We agree to disagree without being disagreeable. Ain't no how step with Marcus J. Live from the Den. Legacy Internet Radio. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we have our brother Dave in L.A. He's going to join us. He's going to talk to us about the L.A. riots. He's going to talk to us about his time as a member of the LAPD. He's going to talk to us about NWA straight out of Compton and After Police and how he felt about After Police when he was an officer in L.A. Marcus J. Grizzy, Mr. LP, and soon to be our brother Dave in L.A. Ain't no how step with Marcus J. Live from the Den of Legacy Internet Radio. Be back in a few minutes. Stay with us.
Boom.